calling to order the D64 Board Policy Committee meeting. So present, I don't think I have to take attendance, but we have Rebecca Little, Carol Salas, Superintendent Eric Olson, and Natasha Nedelkovic. So on our agenda, we're starting off with press. Is this 106 we're on right now? Okay, 106. Press 106. So the district policy committee, or the administrative policy committee, I believe already reviewed these, right, Dr. Olson?
Correct.
Okay, and then so we're just reviewing, as usual, any changes and any discussion items we have about all of the policies in this press issue. Most of them have no changes, and they're just changes to the footnotes, which aren't substantive. They're not included in our policies. So I mean, we can talk about them, but they don't change our policies. Okay, so is everyone ready to begin?
Yeah, and I thought I would just update you right away that the district policy committee recommended no changes. So they just recommended to accept all of them as is. A couple of them only have to do with high schools, so don't involve us, but all the others that do, we were very comfortable with the language that was there. I don't mind going through these one by one or talking through them, but I just wanted you to know that up front.
Okay. So then I guess that'll make this go faster. I guess if we wanted to just start with policy 3:40, in this one, just the footnotes were updated. There was nothing in the policy itself. This had to do with the superintendent. Did anyone have any issues or questions about this one?
No.
And then there's that checklist that was updated too. So 4:10, fiscal and business management, that was unchanged also, and just the footnotes were updated. 4:55, use of credit and procurement cards. This policy is also unchanged. It just explains the procedure for who's entitled to use these credit and procurement cards.
Yeah.
And that you just have to monitor that. 4:80, accounting and audits. The cross references, and then the policy had minor changes, but it sounds like the district had no further changes to this press policy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, 4:90, student activity and fiduciary funds. This was renamed and it had other minor changes plus changes to the footnotes. It just notes that certain funds we have are held in a fiduciary capacity. Any questions about that one?
No.
Okay. 4:150 was about facility management and building programs. This policy was also unchanged, and the footnotes were updated. No questions. 4:175, convicted child sex offender screening and notifications. This was also unchanged. The policies were up, or the footnotes were updated, and then we also have an updated administrative procedure about how to screen people and how to, notify someone if there's something bad that pops up. 5:30 was about hiring process and criteria. This policy was also unchanged. The footnotes were updated. It also relates to the convicted child sex offender policy. This administrative procedure was also updated. Let's see. 5:190, teacher qualifications. This policy was also unchanged, and the footnotes were updated. There was one issue about driver's ed rules that doesn't affect us. 5:270, employment at will, compensation and assignments. This had no substantive changes also. It was just subject to the 5-year review. 6:15, school accountability. This policy was also unchanged. The footnotes were updated. Talks about assessments and the ISBE receiving a waiver. 6:20, this is the school year calendar and day. The policy itself was not changed in this press issue, but the references and cross references and footnotes were updated. 6:40, curriculum development. This policy was also unchanged and the footnotes were updated. This one also had, or 6:235, this exhibit was updated for the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. We haven't really talked about the exhibits lately, but I guess in the end when we talk about new business, if anyone wanted to talk about all these press exhibits and what we do with them.
Okay.
6:280, grading and promotion. This policy was also unchanged. The footnotes were updated. 6:300. This was about high school graduation requirements, so we don't have this policy and we don't need to include it, right?
Yep.
And then, okay, 6:310. This is also about high school credits, and we don't currently have this policy, so I don't think anyone's suggesting that we add it.
Right.
Okay, so then this one I did have a question about. 6:315, high school credit for students in grade 7 or 8.
Yes. So this could apply to us. Did you have any questions, you said?
I think, so since it could apply, we're adding it, right? Is that what the district
Yes.
team? Okay,
Yeah.
so I agree with that.
And-
Rebecca, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree.
And just so that you know, so this has been a conversation with the high school that has been ongoing, and obviously with the pandemic, then it kind of put it on pause. But there will continue to be conversations and work done because I think you're aware that the high school changed some of its programming for math, and so the elementary districts have been catching up to line things up correctly. And one of those things could be an opportunity for kids to take a high school class and actually receive the credit for it. The challenges that come with it is that our teacher who's teaching it has to be certified to teach high school. But some of our teachers are, so that's something. But then it gets into, so what if Carol's teacher is qualified, but Rebecca's teacher is not? Then Carol could get the credit, but Rebecca couldn't. So we might have to put additional teachers through training to make sure everybody has the same equitable opportunity for kids. So those are some of the ongoing conversations that are happening right now.
And then would the strategic plan committee discuss this at all, or would that be completely separate?
It would be separate.
Okay. So we'll add 6:315. Okay, where were we?
And we've held off before because we haven't got far enough in this conversation, but I didn't see any reason why we can't wait. I mean, we should put it in there.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. 6:320. There were no changes to the text of the policy. That was about high school credit for proficiency. 6:340, student testing and assessment program. This updated, I believe, just the description of the standardized test plus the footnotes. 7:100, health, eye, and dental exams, immunizations, and exclusion of students. I think the policy wasn't really substantively changed. I think they broadened what type of nurses can sign the forms.
Yeah.
And updated the footnotes. 7:140, search and seizure, that was unchanged also. There's also an exhibit for the letter to parents about the students' right to privacy. 7:300, extracurricular activities, the policy, footnotes, and cross-references were updated in response to a 5-year review. Did anyone have questions about that?
No.
Okay, 7:325, student fundraising activities. This updated the policy and cross-references. It looked like there were restrictions, but then the exceptions are so broad that PTOs are allowed to fundraise,
Yeah.
There wasn't really that much changed. Let's see, various administrative procedures were also updated, which those are not part of our policy manual. And I think that's it for Press 106.
Yeah, I think so
Any
too,
other
unless
comments?
there's any other questions. Okay, you went through that very efficiently.
Okay. Well, that was good that you guys,
Yeah.
didn't have your, so we should do that next time if, just
Yeah.
focus on what.
Yeah, we
your
probably
changes
should.
are. Okay, so let me look at our agenda. Next is our discussion on policy 2:140, communications to and from the board. There were a couple, maybe 2 or 3 board members who wanted us to review this. I didn't receive any comments from them, and they're not here today. So I mean, I'll follow up after this meeting to see if they have any other issues before our next board meeting. But I personally don't have any suggested changes to 2:140. Did anyone else?
So, obviously, I think 2:140 just has a lot of legs to it, that as you know, and as you've talked about at the table, is that, it seems like we could come to an agreement on the surface, but then once you start getting into the details is where there starts to become different points of view and so forth. And I can't remember if I had this conversation with one of you, but I was talking to some board member where where the thought was, does it make sense for our board to tackle all this now and get it ironed out in the next couple of months, and then welcome a new board where there's going to be, new people now that might have new ideas about how the new system should be? And does it make more sense that for us to look at this when the new board's seated, so that we can make, what are we doing for the next 2 years, as a board? At the same time, I'm not shying away from it, if we think, it's important, but I think this is going to be a couple of us talking about it, going back to the board, coming back to us, going back to the board. So I could go either way on it. And I believe I talked about it with Rick as well, and he could go either way too,
So I guess what we could do is see if people have substantive changes, which we haven't received yet, and then we'll, I guess, discuss it when it comes to that. Because if they do, then fine, we'll discuss them. But if they don't, then we'll wait for the new board.
I'd rather wait. I feel like there's a handful of things that we just never stop talking about. And if we start this now, then we'll finalize it. And then we'll still be looking at this policy in June.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So that's all I had.
Yeah, we'll just continue that for the next committee meeting. So the next
and
was,
if you want, you can say that next week at the board meeting, and if they want us to do something more, they'll say it,
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So the next policy was 4:60, and that is kind of an ongoing hot button policy about purchases and contracts and what the procedure is that we have to follow when we purchase items. The last time this came up was with the Chromebook and iPad purchases, and whether we had time and the resources to go out to bid for that. So we discussed this last time. Or maybe it was 2 meetings ago. Was it 2 meetings ago? 2 policy meetings. So we had MJ and Luann explain the procedure. And then this time we have the administrative procedures, which we can review. The latest press issue actually did update one of the administrative procedures for 4:60. So that's fine. The only other thing I had to add was the statute that's referenced is 105 ILCS 5/10-20.21A. Let's see. And it starts off by saying, to award all contracts for purchase of supplies and materials or work involving an expenditure in excess of $25,000 or a lower amount as required by board policy to the lowest responsible bidder. So I think the sticking point is this $25,000 threshold, and do we want to change it? I think that, I guess, would be the heart of the issue, because if there are too many, administrative costs and real costs associated with going out to bid every time, then it wouldn't be efficient. But if there's something, an amount between $0 and $25,000 that would address this issue that some of the board members have, then we could discuss that.
Yeah. And, I'm not diminishing the value of any of those conversations. I think one of the things, I want to keep expressing is pretty much the way we're operating is how all districts operate. We even had, we had a MJ call around to a whole bunch of districts. If you couldn't find one that would change, the way that it's going. Now, that doesn't mean we can't, and that doesn't mean we shouldn't, but, I still want to, because I think, as you heard from MJ and Luann, I think part of that threshold is, if we change it, do we have to be coming to the board for that many more things, and if that's what the board wants, then that's what the board wants. But I think that's, part of the conversation. And I know there's a couple board members, I think, who don't like the process for electronics, and how you kind of research and get the different companies and you kind of figure out who has the best deal, and you can get all that group of who they are, but you're not really going through a formal bid process and that type of thing. But that is just how technology works. And I would even say things like every year we purchase a contract to do map testing. Every year we do a contract to do fast bridge. And those things are, a significant cost, but we just do them year after year after year after year. If we change this so far, would we be bringing all those things to the board? So I think it's a matter of how far do we want to go, with it.
Right. So then the other part is, besides the dollar amount, is which exceptions apply, and do those board members want us to remove any of those exceptions? So those are the two issues which we'll continue to, review. I did look at other district policies, and pretty much everyone follows press.
Yeah.
I'm not inclined to not just to make this up when other school districts don't do it. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. Pandemic preparedness. This is one that we've discussed at probably at least 6 meetings. This is policy 4:180. We had the press version that we originally presented to the board. The version that was approved was just the version that was stripped down and mirrored the state statute. So that is what we have right now. And at our last board meeting, a board member mentioned possibly taking another vote on that. And our legal counsel, Tony Louisi, said that based on Robert's Rules of Order, that it would have to be one of the board members who voted in the majority in favor of this policy to seek a revote. So if that happens, then my suggestion is that we present again the press version instead of just rewriting a new one, because it's either the press version or the one we have. So I guess we'll have to see if one of the 4 board members on the quote unquote winning side wants to do that next time.
Yeah.
And they might not.
Yeah. And so because Tom brought it up, and even though the board wouldn't vote, it is a line item on next week's agenda to discuss 4:180, because Tom asked if we could talk about it again. So I'm kind of with you, if we're going to have a discussion about it next week anyway, I don't know if we should be going through and deciding, do we want to change anything or not, when we're just going to have a conversation about it again. But
right.
Okay.
So the other issue is when we were talking about the, purchase and contract policy and whether new board members would have different views. This is another one where I think we have to ask Tony, well, what happens when, in a few months we have a new board, then how does that work with Robert's Rules of Order when 3 people, didn't vote on this before? Then who is the, who do we need to bring this motion again? Okay, so let's see. Then the other 2 things I added to new business, if we're done with all the other ones, are 2:160, which is the policy related to the attorney, and then 2:170, which is for our architects, engineers, and surveyors. And the only reason I just added these are because we're talking about 4:60, and these other 2 are related in the process and their and what the district does to approve them. So in connection with our 4:60 discussions, we'll have to have these 2 policies, follow along with pretty much. And so 2:160, we also have one of those exhibits in press that has a checklist for selecting the board attorney. And that has all this info, so we don't have to, recreate the wheel. And then 2:170 about architects, engineers, and surveyors, that has an administrative procedure that says what you do to, find your professionals that way. And I believe it's been, I don't know, Rebecca might know also, it's been several years since we've switched architects. What was it, like FSGLM? Is that the last one we had? And then law firms, I don't remember the last time we looked for a new one, but I think right now we have Chapman and Cutler and Hodges Louisi. And then I think occasionally we've used other firms. What did we use that one with the SROs? I forgot the name. The one out in DuPage County.
I can't
Is that
recall.
Franzik? I'm trying to remember. if it's-
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah.
So those are the things, yeah.
The architect changed 5 years ago when Luann came along, so she picked the new architect. Yeah, so.
So I think that's going to be a conversation with the new CSBO, because different CSBOs kind of have different models and, different ways they go about it. I mean, it's not that different, but I've seen differences of how they run in different places. So that we'll talk about.
Right.
Also, I wasn't here for it, but I know the board did review maybe 5 years ago, 4 years ago, about the legal services, and just, they made the decision to stay with Hodges and Louisi at that time. We can certainly have that conversation as a board at any time.
Right, and that's the thing where we could either do that now or wait until later. And then we understand with the timing of it, we don't want to be disruptive if, Hodges Louisi's in the middle of something big, which they are. So we might have to time it better.
Yeah.
Okay, does anyone else have any new business?
No, I don't. Okay.
No, Rebecca doesn't either. Okay, I don't either. So it is 12:21 p.m.
2:21.
2:21 p.m. I guess we take a vote on adjourning?
No, I don't believe you have to.
No. Okay, so now it's 2:22 p.m. and we're adjourning.